Emma Gray was born in a small town in Oklahoma, where everyone knew each other. Her parents worked at a local store, but from a young age, she dreamed of a different future. Emma had always felt the world's injustice. When her best friend Lily became a victim of assault and the perpetrator walked free, she made a vow: one day, she would make sure no one could escape responsibility for such crimes. Lily was her closest friend. They went to school together, dreamed of the future, and made plans. But one day, everything changed. Lily met a young man who seemed kind and caring. One evening, he offered to drive her home but instead took her to an abandoned place and assaulted her. She was in shock, too afraid to tell her parents or even Emma. When she finally gathered the courage to go to the police, they refused to help her. The rapist was the son of a powerful businessman, and the case was hushed up. Lily broke down, withdrew into herself, stopped leaving the house, and eventually took her own life. Emma blamed herself for not being able to save her. That event became a turning point. New York beckoned her like a guiding star, and despite her parents' pleas to stay, she made her decision. Gathering her last savings, she set off to the city where she hoped to build her career as a lawyer. However, the reality was much harsher than she had imagined. Law school required inhuman effort, her scholarship barely covered rent, and she had to work night shifts at a cafe. She spent countless hours with her textbooks, sometimes forgetting to eat, but never once did she doubt her choice. Her diligence didn't go unnoticed. A criminal law professor offered her a letter of recommendation for one of New York's most prestigious law firms. It was the chance of a lifetime. Working at the firm, Emma encountered the ruthless world of corporate law. Only the strongest survived here, and intrigue was part of the game. Her colleagues were willing to step over anyone to climb the career ladder. Being a girl from a small town, she faced condescension from wealthy, ambitious attorneys. But the biggest blow was the betrayal of her boyfriend, Mark, the only person she relied on in this cold city. One day, she accidentally overheard her colleagues discussing his affair with another coworker. Her heart shattered, but even in this hell, she refused to break. Throwing herself into her work, Emma began taking on cases of sexual assault. It was her calling, but the deeper she delved into the subject, the more enemies she made. Powerful people whose names surfaced in lawsuits didn't want exposure. She began receiving threats, was stalked by unknown figures, her car was set on fire, and her apartment was broken into. Even the firm's management hinted that she was going too far. But she knew that if she backed down, she would betray herself. One of her first high-profile cases was against a famous producer accused of systematically harassing young actresses. His lawyers tried to portray the victims as liars, but Emma found witnesses, old messages, and evidence that the studio had covered up his crimes. Despite pressure, threats, and bribery attempts, she saw the case through to the end, and the producer received the maximum sentence. Another case involved a group of college students who filmed and distributed footage of sexual assault. Emma managed to prove their guilt by collecting digital evidence and persuading several victims, who were initially too afraid to speak, to testify in court. After securing a guilty verdict, she helped these women receive psychological and legal support, further solidifying her name in human rights circles. One day, a woman named Sarah reached out to her, a victim of a well-known senator. This man had immense power and connections, and his lawyers were already destroying evidence to cover up the case. Emma knew that pursuing this case could ruin her career, but she couldn't refuse Sarah. The deeper she dug, the more terrifying the consequences became. Her phone was tapped, she was attacked near her home, but this only fueled her determination. She partnered with journalists to ensure the case wouldn't be silenced. The trial became a national sensation. She faced the best lawyers in the country, but she was ready. Presenting irrefutable evidence and drawing media attention, she brought the senator to justice. After that, her name was known all over America. She founded her own firm, specializing in defending victims of assault. Now, she had a team, support, and an endless drive to fight for the truth. But one day, Emma faced a decision that would forever change her life. One of her clients, a billionaire with a dark past, offered her a massive bribe to cover up evidence. She hesitated for a long time, but with mounting financial struggles, she accepted the money. However, her action did not go unnoticed. Her close friend and colleague, Clara, accidentally discovered the truth. Emma tried to explain, but Clara was firm. If Emma didn't confess, she would do it herself. Panicked, Emma made a horrific decision. On that very night, she killed Clara, staging her death as an accident. She thought it was over, but she didn't know there were other witnesses. Consumed by fear, Emma decided to run. She chose the most remote place she could find, an uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean. But her escape turned into a nightmare. The island wasn't as deserted as she had thought. It was home to tribes of cannibals. They captured her, and then they ate her. I am the one telling this story, the very Aborigine who stood in the front row that day. I spared her head. Her brain became my source of knowledge. I studied her life, her decisions, her struggles. I became inspired by her dream to become a lawyer. Now, I defend the rights of my people. I speak at the United Nations. I have achieved recognition for our rights. I have become the voice of those who were unheard for centuries. But there is one thing that haunts me. I realized that if I hadn't killed her, if I had offered her a place to stay, if I had married her, we could have changed the world together. We are both killers. But who of us is truly more guilty?